Um, Welcome everyone. Chef Jessica here. Chef Lord with us as well, helping out. Questions, feel free to throw in the chat. But I do, because there's only a couple of you, and I had a feeling it wouldn't be that large of a group just because of where we're at. So Angela, Daryl, Elizabeth, what specific questions do you have, if any? If you're looking just for an over review, that's kind of what my plan was, but I would love to answer any specific questions you guys have.
I can shoot one out there.
Yeah.
I'm struggling with cost percentage.
Cost percentage?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I did my test and I got all of them right, except the two that are basically asking me to figure out, like, it gives me the list of everything, beginning inventory, ending inventory. And
Okay.
then it says, what, first one I had to figure out what the cost percentage was. The other one was, what was it? I think, well, they're both based around cost percentage. So I know I'm just struggling with that. And I have my notes out and I still didn't know what to do with the numbers that I was given.
Okay. So food cost percentage, total food cost, that type of thing.
Yes, total food cost and food cost. Exactly.
Perfect. Good to know. How about Daryl?
Here, I'm gonna take notes.
Yeah. Well, I just want to make sure, because there's only a few of us, that I'm answering your guys' questions specifically. And then Elizabeth, were you doing like your final test, your week 6 test is where you were at? So you've done the other weeks?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I know some people play catch up. So just kind of want to make sure we're touching base on everything that you guys who are here with us today get everything you need. Daryl, nice to see your face. Where are you at, or what are you looking specifically for help with?
My issue is the same one that she's talking about.
Food cost percentage.
Yes.
Okay. Perfect.
So I'm not the only one.
No, you're definitely not the only one. And I mean, I planned on kind of just reviewing your course in general today, but obviously if that's where you're both struggling the most, we're going to touch base more on that for sure. Angela, I don't know if you are listening, present. Well, obviously you're present, but sometimes I know people are doing other things while listening. So Angela, chime in if you, I guess if you're hearing me and want to throw out what you're struggling with too. But for that purpose, let me get my computer self to the right screen. And yeah, we'll get kind of going. I'm going to share my screen with you guys. And I do want to point this out to you because I always like to. I'm just in a random class. This is not your class that you are in, but in your class that you are in, all looks the same on your dashboard. If you guys have not seen this yet, this is why I pointed out. If you go to your Start Here section and drop it down, that is where you'll find online tutoring. So this online tutoring tab, if you guys have not been there, that's how you find us, the tutoring team. This is how you can book a session with us, always in your time zone. We are here to help you. So obviously services are here. Everyone, all the tutors' numbers, emails to get a hold of us if you ever need to. This obviously is the last week of the term, so this schedule will be changing. But we do this every term. We have workshops every term, regardless of what class you're in, what you're looking for help with. All here, costing, links to join. And then this is the main reason why I'm bringing you here. We record them all. So like if you're struggling with something, even after we're done today and you want to go back, all of these are like our previously recorded this term's workshops. So if you need food cost inventory, beginning inventory, that's what this one's all about. I will definitely be covering it today with you guys, but I like to point this out because anything we put the topics and the videos are here for you. And then same thing, kind of in the same sense, this Quizlet, if you click on this Quizlet digital flashcards, that brings you to our Quizlet page. And we do have a lot of math-wise, but costing-wise too. So food cost, percents, inventory, portions, portion sizing. Again, these are just flashcards to really help you. I like to do them with workshops as I can, but they're honestly here. I'm gonna exit out of them. at your disposal. So if you're looking for extra help or you're just needing some extra problems, those are here for you. So not everyone knows that. So I do just like to point it out, all of them, really. You don't have to be invited to any of these. So if you're just looking for, I mean, study tips, way to be successful here, writing, reading, menu, anything. Anyway, just kind of wanted to touch base on that because I know not everyone's aware of it. Muhammad, I know you joined a minute or two late. No worries. But before I really dive into what we were just discussing, Muhammad, what specifically are you looking for help with today or struggling with? If you're there. Silence. That's okay. Angela or Muhammad, if you guys feel like chiming in or talking or answering, go for it. If not, I'm not offended either. But definitely want to make sure we're covering everything, kind of reviewing everything. So I'm gonna do a fast review of the stuff that you guys seem like you probably will, again, totally, please, please, please stop me if you have questions. Stop me if you're not understanding something. I will definitely touch more base on the food cost percents, because I know that's what you guys were saying you're struggling with the most, but so we can get a good general idea. Rounding principles, 0 through 4 stays the same. I like to think of them as nice numbers. They don't change. 5 through 9 makes their neighbor change who they are. Mean numbers. Are we good with rounding for the most part? I hope so, at least in week 6 of your class. If not, please, please, please say something. We can get you some extra help there. Conversions, if you do not have a master conversion sheet, I encourage you to do so. And actually, this totally brings me to another point, and I'm going to jump. Don't mind my page because it looks different than your guys' page, but I am going to jump into your class real quick because I want to show you, well, one of your classes. There you go. There's one of them. I do want to show you this because not everyone knows this is here. So in your class, regardless of who your chef instructor is, if you scroll and you look at, like, I'm going to just jump to week 1. There's this conversion sheet. If you click on that, there's some conversions on here. Highly, highly recommend you having a grand cheat sheet, if not this one, with everything listed, because yeah, there you go, Elizabeth. That's awesome. Because trying to do this class, and if you can't remember how many ounces there are in a pound, you're going to get answers wrong. You just will. So either having that list in front of you written down somewhere, having a tab open, having Google open, it really does not matter, but using that at your disposal because it's just information you can use and you should be using. Same thing. Restaurant math in action. These are all of your equations. If you guys have not clicked into these yet, click into them, print them out, have them open. These are essentially all of your equations that you guys are working through each week. And they are there under each week. So like week 5, restaurant math in action, forecasting. Have you guys opened these yet?
Yeah.
I see a lot of
I have.
full circles.
Oh,
Awesome.
I have all of that printed up, and I think I have like this.
Perfect.
Okay,
Perfect.
I'm doing good for that, but I'm
Yeah.
paperwork, and I have the rest in my head, and then I got to these 2 questions. I'm like, I don't even know which one of these papers to look at to make sense of it, and I'm going back and forth between a couple of papers, so it just, I figured.
It is a lot. Yeah.
Thank God you had this workshop this morning. Where
Yeah,
is it? I gotta click on that link.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've talked to people who are in like week 5, 6 of their class, and they have no idea these are here. So I always like to point them out. If you aren't using them, at least look at them because they do have all your equations on there. But let me jump back to the bulk of the good stuff. So we're good there. Fractions, decimal percents. A fraction, you basically divide top number by bottom number, gets a decimal. Getting from that decimal to a percentage is you can either multiply it by 100 or move the decimal 2 spots to the right. That's again huge. And I do want to point this out too, just for the couple of you who mentioned that you really needed help with the food cost percents, yield percents, things like that. Anytime you are getting a percentage, anytime, you are going to divide a number by another number, always. And when you do that, you're always, always, always going to end up with a decimal. I shouldn't say always, but this class, always. So if you're doing anything, trying to get a percentage, it's going to be a number divided by a number, going to get you a decimal. That decimal you would then turn into a percentage, multiply by 100, move it 2 spots to the right. Before I really get going on the equation part, and for those of you who joined late, please, please, please feel free to unmute yourself, stop me, ask questions. This is here for you guys to make sure you're understanding everything at the end. I'm going to kind of touch base on everything quickly, so just bear with me. I'll show you at the end too where you can find those archives like I did at the beginning. But I cannot stress this enough. Chef Laura has probably heard this 800 times in the past 6 weeks. Read the question. Please read the question. I know that sounds really simple and easy and stupid, but reading that question, reread the question, read it like 5 times. I really, really like reading the question and understanding, what is this question asking of me? And just asking yourself that question about the question, because helping yourself understand what they're asking before you start doing math, before you start answering it, one, you're going to catch really silly errors, just automatic. And two, some of the questions don't, as you've probably started finding out already, don't require math. So there's some questions on your test that are not even math related. That
If
it's
they give you the list of the this is what she purchased through, this week and her ending balance and beginning balance, and then you read the question, like the final question, is it, do they ever give you too much information? So I'm like
all
thinking,
the
do I
time.
really need that information?
No.
And so it's throwing me off because I'm like, I must do something with those numbers. It's here. So
No.
it is possible that they're just putting that there, but I don't really need it for the equation to get the answer.
Correct. All the time. Yes. That is like that throughout this whole course. And there's a lot of things, like as you've probably found out in week 5 and 6 or 5, really, there's a lot of numbers and there's equations involved and there's math involved, but it's not so much doing math. It's more understanding what the math is telling you and answering it. Like, did we make a profit? Did we lose? So there's an equation and there's math, but it's not so much doing math. It's more understanding what's behind the math, which is just as important, honestly, because you can plug in numbers and equations all day long, but if you don't understand what they're telling you, it's not going to help you going forward. But yeah, Elizabeth, you're totally right on that. There's a lot of questions out there, whether they involve math or not. There's too much information. There's a lot of words. They give you a lot of story problems like this and this and this and this. You only need part of it. So I really, really like to look at the actual question, read the question, read it a couple times, and just think, what is this question asking? What are they trying to find out here? And then based on that, it will tell you, it kind of will show you what you need to do. And in the same sense, thinking about it that way, once you do your math, once you answer your problem, put that answer back into your question and think, does this even make sense? Because if I'm personally like dyslexic when it comes to math, like I multiply when I should divide, or I divide when I should multiply, or I divide by the wrong number the wrong way. I do that all the time still, honestly. And with this class, 95% of the time, I would say the answer is going to be so obviously wrong if you do that. It's going to scream red flag. Like your food cost percent is not going to be 250%. It's not going to be. That makes 0 sense. So when you're doing the math, just put that final answer back into your question and think, does this answer even make sense to what it's asking? And you're going to find that you can catch yourself doing a lot of silly, common mistakes that way. And it's better to catch yourself doing that than to submit the answer and be like, oh crap, I just did that wrong. Like I just flip-flopped them. I
Yeah,
can't
and one
stress.
thing I do, I do, that helps me because I do that too. I will divide it the wrong way initially. So I know that I do that all the time. So I always have a sample of like from the notes, a sample that they gave me with the actual how they wrote it out. And then I will first let me try and multiply and divide it and make sure I get it their answer. So I know I'm doing it in the right pattern.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
if I do it in the wrong pattern, then I know, okay, I didn't even get the sample right. So I have to put my numbers around. Because
yeah,
it's not in my head and I'll rotate those two numbers. So just to make sure I'm doing the math in the right direction, I'll redo the sample. But I think what's giving me the hiccup is I'm trying to do something with all the numbers they're giving me. So I feel like I'm
yeah,
halfway there and then I'm like, okay, it made sense and then I just messed it up.
yeah. And that's common too. And we'll get more into this, but yeah, that's exactly right. I just kind of wanted to tell everyone that if you did not realize it, because just those pointers alone will really help as you work through the problems. It's one thing for me to explain the equations and problems again to you all, but knowing how to double check yourself and find your errors yourself will really help on your tests and just going forward. But yeah, let's kind of dive into some of these equations. Again, stop me if you have questions, if I'm not making sense. Want to make sure you guys are getting the info. So your first few equations, how many portion servings can you make? Or how much do you need to order? Those kind of two go together. So portion servings, anytime you're talking portion serving size, you're always dropping anything to the right of that decimal because you cannot have a partial portion. You cannot have a partial serving. You're not going to serve somebody a half a cheeseburger. So everything to the right drops off when we're talking portion serving sizes. So looking at this example in front of us, if we have 192 ounces of cheese, it's basically telling you that's how much you have in your kitchen right now. Each portion uses 12 ounces. How many portions can we serve? How much can we basically make with what we have? You would just take your 192 and you would divide it by your 12. And that gets you your 16. So 16 12-ounce portions. Now, kind of just showing you what I said. Let's say you screw this up and you do 12 divided by 192. You're going to get 0.06. Like, why on earth would you have 0.06 of a serving when you have 192 ounces? You wouldn't. It just doesn't make sense. So again, just kind of double checking your math, or let's say you multiply because you're like me. 2,304 servings. Just does not make sense. So again, just ways you can double check yourself. Kind of moving on, how much do you need to order is telling you, you need this many servings, how much your portion size is, how much would you need to order to fulfill that portion or to fulfill the servings that you need. So this one's just basically multiplication. You take how many servings you need times your serving size, and that gives you how much you would need to order. Again, 12 times 4 equals 48. I know these are some of the easier equations in comparison to the rest of the class. So how are we feeling with those two? Good. For those of you, I cannot see your faces, just, I don't know, unmute, yell at me, throw it in the chat if you are not. I don't know, put a thumbs down or a no if you're not getting in the reactions. Either way, got a lot to cover, not a lot of time. So we'll move on for now. Week 2 stuff. Yeah, technically it's week 2. Week 3. No, it's week 2. I always mix it up. So how much does a portion serving cost? So somebody was messing with my slides. I don't like that there. It won't go away. Anyway, how much does a portion serving cost? Again, is asking you, how much does it cost for this serving, for this portion? So usually, and I should have switched this before this. I apologize, everyone. This is the bulk of it. So anytime you're seeing how much does one portion serving cost, you always have to get it to your unit of measure. So if it's your serving size is in ounces, you need to break it down to ounces. If it's tablespoons, you need to break it down to tablespoons. If you have gallons and cups, you need to break it down to cups. So you're always going to go to that serving size, and you basically, I'm going to jump back here. I'm going to flip flop those for the future. But you're always going to break it down to your price per unit. So Azar, I'm going to say your name wrong. You have a question?
Hey, yes, I'm sorry. Earlier, my name was appearing as Muhammad, so I don't know what happened.
Oh,
Yeah. So, how are you today, man?
good, thanks. How are you?
Okay,
What do you?
I just have a question. I don't know, is it related to this? But I was just wondering, when you go in your real life for the work, so how you will, like, is there will be any books over there where they can tell you what is the price of the portions, or for the recipe, or do you have to do that? How does that work?
You have to do the math.
Okay.
Now there is, depending on as you go forward in the program, there's a pretty cool spreadsheet, honestly. Granted, I just like spreadsheets. So
Uh,
there is a cool spreadsheet that kind of does it for you with these equations, but it's the
okay.
exact, this is how you would figure it out. So yeah, that's a great question. I mean, if you were pricing out a recipe or an item on your menu, you would
Yeah.
basically have to figure out how much of each ingredient you're using, your recipe, how
Uh,
much each ingredient costs. So if you're using 12 ounces of mushrooms, how much do those 12 ounces cost? You would
okay.
basically total up your entire recipe. Like, I don't know, I like to say, let's say some pasta dish, and we got all these ingredients. You total up your entire recipe, and then you would divide it by your servings. So if you make this pasta casserole dish, and that's 8 servings, and it costs you $32 to make the whole thing, you would just divide it by 8 to get your serving size for that recipe or that item itself. I want to say this class itself doesn't ask you to do the whole recipe, at least not right now. You'll get there as you get farther into the program. So definitely don't forget some of the info you guys are learning here,
uh,
because it will come back to you. Not so much that you have to know the math, but understanding the math.
all
And
right.
so, but yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
So looking at this, you're always going to want to break it down to your serving, your portion unit. So if we buy a 50-pound case of mushrooms for $150, each portion uses 12 ounces. How much does each portion cost? Again, full circle, the question itself is asking you, if we spent $150 on this 50-pound case, how much would 12 ounces cost? Is the question. So breaking it down, your first step is you want to figure out your price per ounce. So, and I'm going to show you 2 different ways you can do this, because this one has like a 2-parter. So you would take your $150 and you divide it by 50, and that gets you $3 per pound. Why can't I edit this? This is terrible. Oh, I'm not logged in. Oh, this is all making more sense now. Why? Sorry, bear with me for a second, everyone. I want to be able to type on here. There we go. I didn't even realize it was like that until now. Let me jump back to where we were at. Okay, sorry. Back to this problem, because now I can type on here and I can get rid of this guy because I don't like him, but I'll do that later. Anyway, so we have $3 per pound. So that's our price per pound. Now you would take that same $3 and you would divide it by 16, because there's 16 ounces in a pound. And that gets us our price per ounce, which would be 0.1875. So something I do want to point out to everyone, do not round early. If you round early, your number and your answer could be off completely. And it could be off for the better, it could be off for the worse. But if you're off by a couple cents, and let's say you serve 100 of the same dish each night for a whole year, you could be losing thousands of dollars just because of a rounding error. So I like to say, as you're in your calculator already, just keep that number in your calculator until you get to the very end, then round. So anyway, this is our price per ounce. So you're always trying to figure out your price for whatever this unit is.
I'm already confused. So the 150 is the total cost, and you divided it by the 50 pounds, giving you $3 per pound.
Right.
Oh, okay, so that's what the 1 pound is. It's $3 per each 1 pound.
Right.
Okay, sorry,
You're-
I got it now.
No,
When
you're
I said
good.
it out loud, I got it. I was like, where did the 1 pound come in? Okay.
Yeah, no, you're good. And this one has a couple parts to it. Not all of them do. So basically, once you get your price per ounce, this 0.1875, that's how much 1 ounce of mushroom costs. We want to know how much 12 costs. So then you would multiply it by 12, and that gets you 225.
So this
So-
is where you're saying don't change that that would, in my mind, I would say, okay, well, it's really 19 cents.
Right. And let me
You're
show
saying
you.
don't do that.
Exactly. So if we rounded this, because we only have cents to the
Right.
nearest cent. So if we rounded this to 0.19 and then we did our 12 ounces, it's 228 instead of 225, which in this circumstance means you're overestimating, which isn't necessarily bad, but it can go the other way. So if, let's say you say the price per your portion is actually less than what it is by a few cents, a few cents over the course of the span of your restaurant could add up. I mean, if you think about it, if you're 5 cents off, just to show you, 5 cents off, and we serve 100 of the dish a day. So 5 cents, that's $5 a day, times the year, that's $1,825 you just lost or didn't account for because of rounding, which is mind-blowing.
Crazy.
It is crazy. So I like to say, just do not round until you get to the very end, hands down, because it can definitely, and I mean, for your guys' sake on your tests, your answer could easily be wrong because of a rounding error like that. And it's not so much a rounding error, you're rounding correctly, it's rounding early. So definitely just making sure you're doing that. This same concept, this kind of tells you, this is why I said I was going to switch these examples around, because that one's the harder version of this, is if you buy steak at $15 a pound and your serving is 6 ounces, how much does that serving cost? Basically asking you, how much would this 6-ounce serving cost if we spent $15 for a pound? So in that sense, you would take your $15 divided by 16, because we know there's 16 ounces in a pound. And honestly, I'm going to tell you guys right now, this is the biggest error I see in this problem. A lot of people struggle with this problem itself because you have to get your price per ounce. And nowhere in here does it say 16. So most people are trying to divide this 15 by this 6, or they multiply these two numbers. There's a ghost number that is not in this problem that you need. That I find is the biggest thing. So anyway, you do 15 divided by your 16, and that gets you 0.9375. So that's how much 1 ounce costs. Now you would multiply it by 6, because we want to know how many 6 ounces cost. And we get 563 with rounding. Everyone following me so far?
Yeah.
Making some sense, hopefully. All right. Moving on. So that's all the same. That's all the same. Fun stuff. Okay. Food cost percentage. So, and I do want to point this out to you guys, because not everyone realizes this. And that's why I like to point it out. Is your food cost percentage that you see in your third week when you're talking, usually it's food cost for a specific item, specific dish, could be beverage, labor, alcohol, anyway, other costs. You basically take your cost, how much you spent on it, divided by your total sales or your revenue, and that's going to get you a decimal. Every time you get that decimal, you would multiply it by 100 or move that decimal 2 spots to the right to get that percentage. So something to note here, you're always going to want to make sure you're giving them the right answer in the right format. So if it asks for a food cost percentage, do not give them the decimal, because that is not a percentage. That is one way to just, that is one of the simplest, easiest things. Like, you're doing the math right, you understand the concepts, but you're not answering it in the right format. Silliest way to lose points. So always making sure you're answering it in the right context. And then I'm going to jump ship real fast. This equation you see right here, food costs divided by total sales equals your food cost percent, is the exact same equation you see in your week 4. Food cost divided by revenue or sales equals food cost percent. This is the exact same problem. Now, the difference between this one and this one is the week 3 is talking for a single item, single ingredient, single thing on your menu. When you're talking week 4, you're talking for the whole restaurant for the whole week. So it's bigger numbers, but the equation's the same. You basically take, and again, I like to break it down. One, I think it just helps me understand it, but understanding what it's asking for. So when you see food cost percentage or labor percentage or anything like that, it's basically asking you, we made this much money. This is how much we brought in from this. That's your sales or your revenue. This is how much money you brought in. Your food cost is how much you spent on food, how much you spent on ingredients themselves, or you can do it for labor, other costs, things like that, but how much you spent on it. So basically your food cost percentage is just the percent of how much you spent in comparison to how much you made. So what percentage did you spend on ingredients alone in comparison to what you brought in off the dish? So again, if you do this math and you end up with 250%, just know that's off. There's no way that's the case. Or you're going to be out of business so fast you can't even blink. So this one, and again, I'm going to show you full circle this problem a couple times. Because like I know, Elizabeth, you were saying you do this. So if you have your steak platter ingredients cost $4.79, you sell it for $12. What is your food cost percent? So basically, what percentage of that $12 did you spend on food, on the ingredients alone? So your $4.79 divided by your 12 equals 0.399166667. Multiply that by 100 or move it 2 spots to the right to get your percentage, 39.9166. I would round up to 40%, honestly. But kind of full circle, if you, let's say you are dyslexic and you do 12 divided by 479, because you forgot which way, you screwed it up. You're going to end up with 2.5. Well, regardless, we need to multiply by 100, move that decimal 2 spots to the right, because that's what we're doing anytime we're getting a percentage. So we get 250%. Why would our food cost be 250%? Like ever? It wouldn't. That just makes no sense. Same thing. Let's say you forget we're dividing and you multiply them. 57.48. That throws me off completely in the sense that I guess we still have to multiply by 100, right?
Right.
5,748. Doesn't make sense. So again, just want to show you more ways you can double check yourself. Okay, moving on. Lowest, we'll kind of circle back to that with the inventory stuff too. But lowest price you can charge, your minimum menu price, and something I didn't point out here, maybe I did. Anytime you're getting that percentage, you're getting a decimal, you have to multiply by 100. Anytime you have a percentage in your equation itself, whether it's at the end or in the actual math itself, it's going to end up being a decimal. So anytime you see this, you would do your food cost divided by your food cost percent, basically asking you, we spent this much on ingredients. How much can we charge somebody if we want to achieve this food cost percent? When you're doing that, it's always going to be the decimal version. You're never going to divide it by the 20% in this circumstance. So 479 divided by your 20% or 0.2, because that's the food cost we want. And we get $23.95. So with this, again, full circle, if you forgot that we divide it by 0.2 and you divide it by 2, or 20, I mean, you get 24 cents. Why would you charge somebody 24 cents if you spent $4.79 on ingredients? You wouldn't, because that makes no sense. Or let's say you multiply by 0.2, 96 cents. Why would you charge somebody 96 cents? Again, you wouldn't. It just makes no sense. The cents don't make sense. So, and I like to just kind of show you that because I am that person. So maybe if you are that person, I don't know, just like to point it out because maybe it'll help somebody. But anyway, this one you can kind of tweak and change depending on what food cost you're looking for. That can change your menu price. If you charge more than this, your food cost percent would just go down. So that's like the lowest you can charge to achieve this food cost percent. Let's see, contribution margin. I don't think you guys did too much on that, but just to touch base, your contribution margin is basically the difference between how much you sold it for and how much your food cost was. So your contribution margin is kind of like what's left over for everything else. It's not how much you made, because you still have to equate for your labor and your overhead costs and other things like that. But it's the difference after you spent money on ingredients. That one's just a simple subtraction. This one, and I want to show you this two different ways. I really like color coding things. It helps my brain function. So if you're like me, you probably like the way this looks. So your food cost percent, or your total food cost. And I, again, just want to point everything out here because this is a lot of information in this equation itself. So your first thing to point out, your total food cost is different than your purchases. So your total food cost is essentially how much food or how much did you spend on food that you also served your guests or your customers that left your kitchen? How much did you serve in food cost? Your purchases is how much you purchased, which is different. So I like to think, if you think about purchases, think about if you go to the store and you buy a bottle of olive oil. You're probably not going to use that entire bottle of olive oil that week. So you can't count the entire bottle as part of your food cost. You can only count for what you use of that olive oil. So your purchases matter, but you have to equate for the fact that you're not going to use everything either. If you buy, I don't know, 8 pounds of salt, chances are you're not using all the salt. So, and that's where this equation comes in. Inventory is what's in your kitchen right now, what you're starting with. So if you look in your kitchen, I'm sure you have some stuff. That's your beginning inventory. That's what's in the kitchen and the walk-in and your pantry to start with. Your purchases is everything you bought, everything you spent money on throughout the week. I do want to point out to everyone, this class specifically in this equation is talking about the week. You can do this though for the day, the week, the month. It really doesn't matter, but just time frame wise, I'm going to just keep saying week to keep it consistent to what you guys are doing. But just know you don't have to do this for each week. You could do it for each month. You could do it every 2 weeks. You could do it every 10 days. It does not matter the time frame, just know keeping it consistent.
So all purchases is the same as, say, looking in my kitchen, the amount that I used that in that time frame. No?
Nope. That
It's like
would
I
be,
started with a big inventory and then I went and I made all these things. Left with this inventory. I still don't figure out about what's there. That's gone, that information.
so you use it. So essentially your beginning inventory is what's in your kitchen starting off, what you have already in there. You would add in all of your purchases. So everything you spent money on ingredients wise for the week. And then at the end of the week, you would subtract anything left. So your ending inventory is essentially what's left over in your kitchen. And the difference, or beginning inventory plus your purchases minus your ending inventory, equals your total food cost.
So where
So
do you
you're-
get that ending inventory? Is that from the sales?
Nope, your ending inventory is what is left over in your kitchen. Now,
Okay.
I'm going to, I think it's on this one. This is the way it looks to you guys. They changed it this term. So this is the exact same equation, but in a chart. So you have your beginning inventory, you add in your purchases, add, and then your ending inventory, you subtract. And that gets you your total food cost, which is the exact same equation as this, but this is more color coded in a word problem versus this is in a chart. But it's the exact same thing, exact same problem. So your ending inventory, you can't count as part of your total food cost because your ending inventory is basically what food is left in your kitchen that you have not served your customers that is going to be there for you tomorrow. It's going to be used next week. So your ending inventory is always your beginning inventory starting the following week. As I'm going to steal Chef Sissy's line, she likes to say, unless your food is breeding and having babies overnight, your ending inventory is going to be the same, your beginning inventory when you walk in the next day. So if you think about it, when you go to bed at night, the food you have in your kitchen is still going to be there the next day, the same amount. That's what it is. Does that help explain it a little bit, Elizabeth?
I think so.
Okay. So basically your beginning, add in everything you spent money on, all your purchases, subtract your ending. That would get you your total food cost. Now your total food cost, I like to think of as like the food you served your customers, the food that left your kitchen that was made, because you're not always using everything you buy. You're going to use it later on if you don't, hopefully. But you can't count that as part of your food cost because you haven't actually used it yet. You're going to count that for your food cost later on, the next week or the next few weeks. Like you buy a big bag of flour and you don't use the whole bag, you use half the bag. You would only you would only want to count for the amount you used, which is that total food cost. And this is kind of how we figure out that total food cost. And so once you have your total food cost, jumping down to that full circle equation, your total food cost divided by your revenues or your sales and revenue are very interchangeable in this class, equals your food cost percent, or in this circumstance, a decimal, and then you would multiply it by 100, move it 2 spots over to the right to get it into a percentage. So again, I'm going to jump over to your chart, your beginning inventory, add up all your purchases, subtract your ending, you get your food cost. Once you get your food costs, you have your sales or your revenue, you divide your food cost by your revenue, and that gets you your food cost percent.
Okay, underneath that, what you were just reading, do you guys explain that?
Like number one.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So
So
that is
I'm actually finished with the class,
okay.
but on the questions,
good.
this helped. Yes, ma'am. I made a 97. Okay, that was a long. When I tell you, it took me a long time to do this, but this question right here, those questions that's on there, that's what stuck me up. I stayed up from 3 to 7 trying to get that. I couldn't find it nowhere. Those questions right there.
Yeah. So honestly, this is your week 4 stuff. This is a
Mhm.
worksheet I kind of like made up for your week 4, which is a lot of what your test looked like without being the actual questions on your test.
Right.
Yeah. So it's not
Like-
so much, and this is kind of what I said at the very beginning, is that this is one of those things that does not require math. This is actually just understanding the math, understanding what's going on, and then understanding what's happening with it. So one way, and I guess I'll tell you both ways. I personally, go figure, I like math. I'm a math person, hence why I'm here teaching you, is because I get the math. But honestly, math makes sense to me. So if this is great. If I saw this number one, like you asked, if ending inventory decreases, what would happen to the food cost? And what does this mean? So your graph, and you're not going to see my hand, but in your actual class, this second column here wasn't there. I put that in there. So again, you can't see my hand covering this, but pretend this is gone. And you
Okay.
only have the first column here with that information. I personally, this is how I would find the answer. And I honestly don't know if your chef is teaching this, but this makes sense to me the most, is I would make the second column like I did, and then I would actually change the number. So it says,
That's what I did.
yeah, so it says if ending inventory decreases, so our ending inventory would be 8,400. Let's say it decreases to whatever. The number does not matter. And then I would honestly do the problem. So, and that's where it comes in, like understanding you have your beginning. You would add in your purchases, which are all the same. Oh, see, I had changed this. I was messing with this. I can't tell at some point with somebody else. So anyway, adding these in, adding up our purchases, and then we're subtracting our ending inventory, which for this example is less that we made up.
Mhm.
And that gets us, our food costs would be 7,090. So if we decreased our ending inventory, what would happen to the food cost? The food cost would increase. Why would that be, or what does that mean? It basically means, and again, just kind of thinking about it full circle and thinking about the equation. At the end, so when you're doing this equation, your beginning inventory plus your purchases minus your ending inventory, if your ending inventory is less, but everything else remains the same and you spent the same amount on food, but you had less left over at the end of the day or the end of the week, that means that you spent more on food. You served more to your customers. Your food costs would be higher because you have less left over in your kitchen. Does that help some?
Mm, Yes, kind of. Because
So
I did all of that and I got the percent. But I wanted to know, like, with the percent, what does that mean? When it says it goes higher, like, it went higher as in what? Like, I was stuck. I was only stuck because I was on week 4 and I was completely stuck.
yeah.
But that just didn't make sense to me. I don't know. But it's okay. You can keep going. I'm sorry.
No,
Right,
you're
so I want to understand that, what she just said. That the food cost went up higher, which means your food percentage went up higher, which means you spent more money on food?
so
Or no?
and this is where the struggle is that typically you're not going to see both questions mixed together. You're going to see a question that asks, okay, if this ending inventory changes, how does that affect the food cost? Or you're going to see something like, if sales revenue increases, how does that affect the food cost percent? Usually they're not combined, but again,
No, my question was completely that.
So if
And it wasn't on the test, but it was on the week 4.
Okay.
So I didn't know how to do it. And that's what messed me up.
Yeah. So if we, let's say our ending inventory was less, how would that affect our food cost percent? Well, if our ending inventory is less, based on the math we just did, we know our food cost is more. If our sales are the same, that means your food cost percent would go up because your sales didn't change at all. Now, in real life terms, if you're serving more food out of your kitchen, you're hopefully having more sales than if you serve less food out of your kitchen, because that just makes sense. So but your food cost would go up basically because your sales didn't increase, but you spent more on food. So you made less money because of that, because you had to spend more on ingredients, but you still brought in the same dollar amount. Does that help some? A lot of this stuff, and you don't have to, I want to kind of point that out. You do not have to make this Singent chart and do the math. You can honestly just think about it in the same sense. If you don't like math and you're more wordy, as I like to say, you can just think about it. So looking at it, if you were to subtract less than 8,400, so you're subtracting less at the end, this number would be bigger because you're subtracting less. Right there's your answer without doing math. The math to me really helps me understand it because I like math, and it just shows me exactly what I'm thinking. Versus if I try to just think about the problem and think about how it would change the numbers, I get lost in my own head and I start confusing myself. So either
Right.
way though,
That's what happened to me.
yeah, I'm like, so either way works, whichever one makes more sense to you. A lot of these problems, like you saw on week 4, and honestly week 5 somewhat too, it's not so much math, it's understanding what the math is telling you, understanding these formulas and how we can change them and how we can manipulate them. So, nope, that's not what I wanted. I don't know where it is. I've lost myself in my own head. Gosh, you guys, you would laugh because that is the story of my life. I'm trying to find this worksheet just for week 5's sake, because week 5 is weird as well, or not weird, but it's the same idea that you don't have math, but you have math. So just to kind of touch base on week 5, because we are short on time, all of this is telling you your projected, how much you think is going to happen of all these things versus your actual, and then the difference whether you were over or under. So again, this is math involved, like all your costs together equals your total costs, all your sales together equals your total sales. Your profit is basically your sales minus your costs. So, I mean, there is math here, but it's understanding what this math is telling you and understanding why that might be. And so if you spent less on labor than you projected, like my example, understanding why that could be the case. Why did you spend less on labor than you thought you would? Well, maybe you had a slow Thursday night and you sent a chef home early. It's as simple as that. I'm not going to spend too much time on that, but that is, again, just week 5, not really doing math, but kind of understanding the math. Yeah, it's a lot to think about because and I do want to actually, I'm going to jump back over to your week 4 stuff.
Yeah, I want to say because 5 was easy to me, 4 was the hard one.
Okay. And honestly, like we kind of said at the beginning, not every problem you're going to need all the information for. So you could easily be given all of this stuff and it could say, hey, if our sales revenue increases, what happens to the food cost percent? A lot of this information doesn't matter. It just means if our sales were more, what would happen to this food cost percent? Well, if we had more sales but the same food cost, that means our food cost percent would go down because we made more money off the same amount of food. So again, not really math involved. You can make it math involved. And I mean, I personally would just because it helps me get it. But if you're not me and you don't like math, you can figure it out that way and just really thinking about it. And again, I said this at the beginning. I know not everyone was with us. Just putting in that final answer, whether it's math or not, and thinking, does that make sense? Like, would it make sense that our food cost percent went down if our sales increased? And again, this is where the math head in me would throw in a number, like let's say it was 29,000 instead of 23 and some change. Yeah, our food cost would go down. It would be 21 instead of 26.
I guess it was the wording of the problem that got me thrown off because I did exactly what you did. Math, my favorite subject. That's not the thing. It's just the wording of it after it decreases. When it says, what does that mean? I put in the percent and I realized that the percent went up. Like, so it went to like 38%, maybe, And I know that they said the thing's supposed to be at 30%, whatever. I'm trying to see what was the next words after that. What was I supposed to say?
Right. And a
Like-
lot of it, like you said, though, it's not, and they try, I don't think they try to trick you. I think they kind of try to trick you in the sense that they want you to think about it. So they kind of do that a lot. There's a lot of words. I know, Elizabeth, you mentioned that too. Like, they give you a lot of information. You don't always need it all. You don't always need that whole chart. You don't always need every single part of that problem. So I really like to read the question, read what it's asking, read it a couple times. And honestly, like, as silly as it sounds, take a step back from doing math, doing the problem, and just think, what is this question asking me? What
I
are
think
they?
I'm gonna trust myself. I'm gonna be like, okay, let me just think. I'm not gonna look at
Yeah.
all the information, and I'm gonna look at the last
Yep.
basic question and try and make sense of what they want to know, because
Like,
I
reverse
think I
engineer it.
refocus on all of the whole problem, and I'm going, wait, what am I supposed to do with these numbers? These numbers must fit in here, when
Yes.
in reality they don't. That's why it doesn't make sense to me, because I'm
Yeah.
trying to use all the information, which isn't necessary.
Exactly. Like, I honestly, I've said this numerous times. I don't think I've said it today, is I like to skip the problem, skip everything, skip all the nonsense that they give you, skip the graph, skip it all. Go to that question, read the question. What is that question asking? Comprehend it, think about it. Okay, that question is asking me food cost percent. Well, now I know food cost percentage, it's looking for a percentage. We know we need to divide a number by another number. Go back to your problem, go back to the information given, and kind of pick out what you need. And then at the same sense, if there's not actual math needed and you don't need an actual equation and you're just thinking about it, it's going to tell you right away. It's going to say something like, oh, if this increases, what would happen to this? Again, you don't need all the information. So you can kind of go back to the problem, pick out what it's asking, what it's talking about. I mean, if the question itself is asking you about profit in comparison to your revenue, jump to that part of it, skip all the other stuff and only use what you need, because it gets wordy, and they do try to confuse you in the sense they give you more than you need. And yeah, if you just start throwing numbers in your calculator, you're going to end up with some funky stuff. But
Apologize if I said I was, because I wasn't talking about that. I apologize, y'all good. I'm sorry.
no, don't be. You're good, because that's on your test. I mean, that's part of your class. So if you needed,
the what confused me is how they say about the decrease or the increase, and then the beginning inventory and ending inventory is either greater or less. I don't know. I didn't
The
know where to
wording.
flip it at.
the wording is really hard.
That's what hindered me.
Yeah. So, I mean, just again, for those who still haven't taken it or still have attempts, just slow down, take your time, read the question fully, and not just the question, read those answers. Because like you were saying, you have some of them will say, oh, this increases, which means this decreases. And if you read them, there's like 4 answers that all sound the same, that are all different.
Right.
One of them's right. Because I've taken your test and I've gotten some of them wrong. And it's like, oh, wait, I just didn't read that.
Because it's like flipped around. And I
It
guess
is.
if I would have took the time to like look at it. Yeah, but I looked at it a long time.
Yeah. So, I mean,
Are these archives, so like now the classes are gonna change after like we finish this week and then next week starts the new classes. Are all of these archive videos still available to us the whole time we're in the school, or is it just they change up by each class you're in? Like if I go to that and like in my next class, say I'm working on it at home, because I'm trying to do my menu at home too, because I make all these things and people are like, oh, sell it to me. And I'm like, oh, don't ask me that, because then I have to figure out this math and I'm not good at it yet. It takes me too long. So can I go back and like review those still, even though I'm not in this class?
yes. So,
Great.
I mean, yes and no. I'm going to show you real quick. And I know a few of you weren't with us. So,
Which is why I'm printing everything out.
so all of the archives are there for you right now. For those of you who don't know, start here section of your class, online tutoring, brings you to our tutoring page. And I'm going to show you a trick just so you're aware of it. So the term starts over Wednesday. These are all, this will change. I mean, we have the same workshops, just the times, and this kind of gets, I don't know, it changes a little bit. Wait till we tweak it a little bit each term. We'll put up new Zoom links. You have access to all these though. So, I mean, if you're wanting to join Baker's Math, Math Foundations, Costing, whatever, you can join these at any time. You do not have to be invited to these, like price your menu. If you want to know how to do that, but you're not quote unquote invited or getting like the outreach for it, you can join. I mean, by all means, it's just more information at your disposal that you guys can learn. If not, maybe you need it later. So all of these you can always join. Now, the thing I did want to point out, we, for whatever reason, and I'm going to mention this to Chef Sissy, they wipe these out. So Wednesday, these are going to be blank. And you're not gonna, yeah, we do them each term though. So as the term goes, like this costing one, and I'm gonna show you this trick real quick. So these get wiped out. Like this is all from this term. Me and Chef Sissy were doing them. But I've been, I didn't realize I was doing this wrong, but it works out really well. So if you click on like one of these YouTube videos, it'll bring you to the recording and it's going to start playing me talking and it's going to drive me bananas. Okay. Hey there, Chef Laura. So this is the YouTube video basically of the recording. But fun fact, even though this will get wiped out and you won't have access to this workshop archives until we do them each week and reload them, they are all in my YouTube.
Oh, that's so cool because just within the last couple weeks, I've been watching videos and I save it to my Escoffier, my personal Escoffier playlist.
Yeah.
So, and I was wondering if I was going to like after like the school or this class closes or not, but I have them in my personal YouTube Escoffier playlist so that I can see each, because it was driving me crazy having to go back and I see that video on something and find the link again. Easier for me just to go to my own YouTube and go to the playlist.
Exactly. So all
That's
of mine are, yeah, and like, so all of mine that I've done personally are underneath my name, go figure. You know, same with Chef Sissy. If you click on hers, it's going to start talking. It's going to drive me nuts. So I'm going to pause it. Same thing though. You can, I don't know how to stop it. I don't know if you guys can hear her talking. There it is. Anyway, so this is another chef instructor tutor, Chef Sissy. But if you click on her name, she has them hidden. See, I've done it different. Interesting. Hers are hidden. That's fascinating because I've been doing mine not hidden. But anyway, I guess it depends on what you're looking for. To be 100% honest, you can find all mine. If you're looking for something like, if you want to know, study smarter and it's blank, you can just shoot one of us. Then literally all of us are here. Shoot us a text or an email and ask for it. And we would be happy to send you the link. Because we do wipe them out just so that new students aren't like overwhelmed. Yes. So we do upload them though as we record them. So as the weeks go on, there'll be more and more. But if you are like, well, I need Baker's Math now and I can't wait for 3 weeks. We have them saved and we are happy to share. By all means. That's a great question. And for those of you who didn't realize, Quizlets, flashcards, costing, math is on here. Use them. They're great. There's some I really like. Well, I like all of them, but
because you love math.
I do. This inventory one though isn't math. It's more questions about inventory and understanding the problems and the equations. So these really help full circle understand what you're doing like week 4 wise. If you're looking for extra help there. But we are definitely over on time and I'm sure there's another student waiting for me in a different room. But
thank you so much for your help.
Yeah. Did anyone have any last minute questions at all? Cool. Well, thank you all for joining. Please reach out to myself or Chef Laura if you do have questions and need extra help. We are here for you guys. And there's all those archives too. I know your term ends tomorrow, so getting a hold of somebody in books to get help might not be possible. Maybe it is. I don't know. I haven't looked in a minute. But there's archives there too. So definitely use those to your advantage, for sure. But thank you everyone for joining, and I hope you all do fantastic in your class and your next class going forward, for sure.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, take care.